Hello, I'm John Shepherd, and in this short video I'm going to answer some more questions that have been sent in to my YouTube channel and asked through my Instagram account. First up is a question from FK, and it's about the long jump. Now he says that he's jumping about 6 meters 50 from 10 to 12 strides, but when he extends his run up further he can't achieve any further distance. So of course he wants to know why that's happening, and this is something that affects a lot of jumpers. Probably the major reason for this is likely to be the fact that he's jumped too many times off of a shorter run up, and therefore his neuromuscular system, the coordination of the movements at the takeoff and the speed that he has to deal with are used to the shorter approach. Therefore, when he comes to jump off of a longer approach and everything happens so much more quickly, he's unable to convert the speed into distance. So what he needs to do is do more work from longer run-ups. Now this doesn't necessarily mean jumping off his longest run-up all the time, but he should be working very close to it, so circa 13 to 17 strides if his long jump run-up was around 19, for example. If you regularly watch the videos on this channel, you'll know that my training approach is a very specific one. So in terms of getting a jumper to be able to take off out of speed, we don't hang around, as it were, and jump too much off of short approaches. Obviously when we start out training we do utilise shorter approaches, but very quickly we'll move on to longer ones in that 12 to 16 step range, so that the jumper very quickly gets up to speed and is able to take off out of speed. Also, it's important to know how to set the jump up properly, and I produced a number of videos on the penultimate step and how this can improve the takeoff. So I'd also recommend that work is specifically done on preparing to take off, so that at a greater speeds the takeoff becomes much more efficient. Another way to get up to speed to be able to take off from a longer run-up is to do a number of competitions in relatively close succession. Nothing beats competing and coming in when you really mean business and you're really going for distance, and that can up the body's ability to deal with speed very, very quickly, because no matter what you do in training, you're never going to be able to come in as quickly as you will do in a competition. The only problem with that is that if insufficient work hasn't been done prior to the competitions, i.e. in terms of working off a longer run-up, then there may be less of an ability to transition through those competitions. However, it is a quick fix sometimes. The second question that I'm going to deal with today comes from the 4J's D'Souza, and he asks about recovery for speed work. And he was watching a particular video where the athletes in my group were doing flying 20-meter sprints, and he specifically wanted to know how much recovery they'd have. When you're going for quality, when you're flat out, whether that be sprinting or jumping, you need to have a full recovery between efforts so that you can put in 100% on each of those efforts. There's no point taking a shorter recovery thinking you're running as quickly, but you won't be. Therefore, it's very much an individual matter which depends on your prior level of fitness and the familiarity with the particular training session. But generally, when my group is doing a session, for example, of 4 to 6 flying 20-meter runs, I will allow them to take as much recovery as they need to recover to enable them to commit 100% to each run. And the other thing that I'll do is I'll enable them to determine whether they do 4, 5 or 6 runs, or even 3. They may be feeling tired, fatigued from previous sessions or competitions, though hopefully not if I've got the training right. But people turn up to training feeling different. Not everybody's going to have the same energy levels as the next person. So the key is to ensure that they are able to put 100% effort into the runs that they perform. So if they end up doing less, say 3 or 4 runs instead of the designated 6, to me that's not a problem. I'll just say a little bit more about why I value flying 20-meter runs or flying 30-meter runs, and just so that you know what they are. They have a long build-up period to the 20 or 30-meter section where the athlete sprints flat out through that section. In a way, they're replicating what you're trying to do on the run-up. There's a build-up phase, and then a flat-out phase, or near to flat-out phase for the long and triple jump, where you attack the board. So we're looking for turnover and a long jump posture, triple jump posture as you're approaching the board. So you've got to stay in a good position, hips relatively high, knees going forwards, chest up, chin up, so that if you were on the run-up, you'd be able to effect a good takeoff. And the final question, the third one that I'm going to answer today, again comes from the 4J's D'Souza, and it's about weightlifting and in particular specific lifts. He says that he doesn't have a specific coach to be able to help him to learn the techniques of, for example, the clean and the snatch, and he's asking me whether there are any simpler alternatives to those types of lifts that he can employ in his training. That's actually a very good question, and it touches on a number of other issues regarding athletes and their weight training. Remember that the obvious, that you are an athlete, you're not a weightlifter. A weightlifter, an Olympic weightlifter at that, spends all their time perfecting the Olympic lifts. As an athlete, you don't have that amount of time and that specific focus. You're a long jumper, a triple jumper, or a sprinter, and your weight training is an adjunct to getting you better at those particular events. So your weight training is not the be-all and end-all. Therefore, you can select different lifts that are designed to improve your performance, your jumping performance. So, going back to the specifics of the question, what alternative lifts could be used? Well, instead of the clean from the floor, the power clean for example, you can use hang cleans. Now, a hang clean requires the bar to be hung just below the knee level and pulled from there up to shoulder height. And it's actually been argued that it's a more effective lift for jumpers than the floor-based method because of the shorter travel the bar has to come up from just below the knees or around the knees to shoulder height. Whereas if the bar's coming from the floor, it's going to take more time to come up to the shoulders. Therefore, a hang clean is a very good lift for developing the power needed for the sprints and the jumps. It has that triple extension through the ankles, knees and hips, which is the same as the floor-based version. Another great exercise for developing the power needed for jumping are loaded jump squats. Now, I often get the group members to use dumbbells held at arm's length whilst they're jumping, as opposed to having a bar across the shoulders, which can bounce up and down and bruise the back of the neck. The idea is to summon as much energy as you can as you leap upwards, pause and then repeat. So these types of exercises, the jump squats here, will have more of a concentric development aspect, whereby the muscles shorten under tension as they propel the body up into the air. As an aside, the majority of lifts performed in the weights room have a concentric emphasis, in that the muscles shorten to create the movement, i.e. pressing a bar forwards, or the squat when the thighs extend to move the weight. The Olympic lifts and versions of them, such as a hang clean, also include an eccentric portion where the bar is corked and the body dips underneath the bar. So there is a value to performing those types of lifts, and the hang clean, as I've indicated, is a great and more simple alternative to the more complicated movements. I'm also a firm believer in unilateral lifts, i.e. one-sided lifts, so step-ups, split squats for example, exercises where you're just working one limb, and often in a way that's not too dissimilar for the movement required for the long jump takeoff for example, i.e. with a step-up. Now you can do these with a bar across your shoulders or with dumbbells held at arm's length. The idea is to move the weight as quickly but as safely as possible as well. So you'd be looking at a heavy-ish weight, one that you could only do around about 8 repetitions. And that would apply also to the hang cleans, although you may be able to go heavier with that exercise. As a related aside, recovery again is crucial when lifting in the gym. You don't want to be so fatigued that the movement or the lifting of the weight slows down. So rather like the flying 20 meters examples where I said that it's very specific to the individual, if you were doing a set of 6 hang cleans and you began to tire on the third, there's no problem with stopping, putting the bar down, having 20 seconds and doing your other 3 reps. In that way, the power output of the lift or the lifts is remaining the same or similar and not decreasing. After all, it's all about maximum recruitment of muscle fibers and rate of force production. Therefore, being fresh enough to create those effects is crucial. As usual, thanks for listening and do subscribe to the channel. Give this video a thumbs up if you like the content, and please do leave any comments you have in the section below, or ask any questions as well in that section or through my Instagram account. And good luck with your training and competition.